Welcome back, guys. This is John, without the H, from SynRC. Today I'm going over the setup for the Freewing twin 70mm AL37, which is really, let's be honest, it's a 737 Max. Mine is a custom paint job in the classic Delta Airlines scheme. I'm very proud of this plane. It took me a very long time to get it built and paint it. And the maiden flight was nerve-wracking for me because I have never invested this much time into a model as I did with this one. I'm going to go over setup, for example, how I've set up crow on landing, also known as spoilers. You know, in a real airliner, the spoiler panels would actually pop up, but you can't really get that with this model unless I was to do some extensive structural work to put a servo in there. I will also go over how I set up Tailerons, which got a better look at back here. Believe it or not, it actually almost doubles the roll rate. And I'll show the Freewing blue box wiring that I've kind of coupled together with the Freewing LED controller that usually goes into, say, the F-15 or the Griffin up there. And I have that controlling the nose light to make it a lot brighter. So much that it's blinding, in fact. So, let's start with the basics. If we go to model setup on my IX20, I will show you exactly how this plane is set up, starting again with the basics. This is a 2 aileron, 2 flap configuration, meaning that each servo on the wing is being controlled independently, and a dual elevator, 1 rudder, which also means that each elevator is being controlled separately. The reason for this is that I did not trust the stock servos that the AL37 came with. Mine may have been defective. I know that I saw the flap jittering as it came down. It wasn't very strong, it looked like. So what I did was I replaced all of the servos in this plane, except for the tail, with AGF RC B11 DLS units. This little thing right here. I took the little wings off of it because I was fitting it into the F-16 as a test run. But these servos put out a ton of torque. I think they're minimum of 2.8 kg per cm or whatever it's called at 6 volts. So it doesn't actually put that much out because this is a 5-volt controller, but it does put out a lot of torque. It was about $80 worth of servos on top of a lot of money in paint and decals. But ultimately she flies really well and the servos are very quiet. So let's get the gear out and we'll start with the mixing. So a lot of the mixing in this plane you can't actually see unless the gear are out. So let's start with full flaps, and then when I'm coming into land and the wheels have touched down, normally an airliner would go to the reverse thrust completely, but because I don't have reverse thrust, I have to just do my best with crow ailerons. And those move up as far as they can possibly go. At that point, I don't need any roll control. All I need is for this thing to slow down as fast as it's capable of slowing down. Now, those ailerons are doing two things. A, they're causing drag on the rollout, and B, they're shoving the wing down, creating some downforce, which is also creating pressure on the wheels, both the nose and the mains, which is giving the ground more contact, more friction, and causing it to slow significantly faster. You almost don't need thrust reverse, but I still want to get it, and one of these days I will probably upgrade to it, because I can only imagine how powerful it would be given that there's no obstructions in the ductwork for the twin 70s on this thing. So to do that, you have to go into your mixing and you mix, let's see here, this one's a bit of a rat's nest the way I've set it up. I didn't actually anticipate on cleaning it up today to show it off. Let's see, it should be under a combo switch, most likely. And it is, yep, here it is. So I have it set as a combo switch where I cannot activate crow unless my switch A, which is my gear switch, is currently out, so set to 0, position 0, and switch C is activated. So what this does is it mixes channel A, or not channel A, but switch A, literally switch A in the IX20. You can also do this with other Spektrum radios, to the right flap channel. Now the reason why it only works with right flap, which would logically be the right flap, not the ailerons both pointing up, is a bug in Spektrum programming. As I've covered in other setup videos, I will show you the reason for this. So let's actually go back and look at which channel it's trying to mix and what number it currently is. So it's mixing to the right flap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's mixing the channel 6 to make this work. So if we go into channel assign, we'll see exactly why this is happening. Channel 6, under the receiver port assignment, is set to right flap, but by default, I believe it actually looks for the left aileron there. And I think I changed some of that assignment around, or it just, maybe I didn't even change it, it just bugged out. But that is the reason why it's happening. It's looking for a channel that isn't actually there. It doesn't actually correspond to what you're trying to mix. You may have to mix and match, unfortunately, to get some of these advanced mixings to work with Spektrum radios. It's very frustrating, and quite honestly, for the price of the radio and the receivers, this really shouldn't be happening. Come on, Horizon, you guys can do better than this. Ultimately though, once you've worked around the little quirks that these radio systems have, you'll find that they are pretty powerful and you can do a lot of good stuff with them. So the mixing on this, going back to the mixing discussion, is a mix of switch A, as in the position of switch A controlling the right flap, which is really the reflex position of the spoilers, moving them up or down in unison at a rate of 100 to 100. You probably don't even need to add the other 100, it's just one of them that needs to move. I just like to make it even on both sides. I'm strange, if that isn't obvious already. For the Taileron mixing, that's a very simple setup. Because each servo is on its own channel, it's possible to do this. If it was on different channels, it would not be possible. And I don't think I actually covered the reason why I had to set it up this way, as every servo being its own control. The reasoning for this is that replacing the servos, these AGF RC servos, they do not come in a reverse configuration, and I've never been able to figure out how to open them up to get them to reverse. I've tried it once and I've toasted a servo doing it. It's not easy to do. If there's a way to do it, somebody please let me know, because I could save some money on these receivers. But ultimately I would probably still use the Taileron mixing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. For Taileron mixing, that is set to be controlled by switch D2, and that is aileron to left flap. It should not be left flapped, it should be REL or LEL. Again, Spektrum bugs. This is a rate of -100 to -100, so that the trailing edge of the elevator matches the trailing edge of the aileron. So they both move in the same direction. And, let's see, that is, again, just controlled by switch D2. Pretty simple stuff. Nothing particularly crazy about it. When you turn it off, it goes back to being a standard elevator. I do have the Nosewheel on an independent control, so it's unlinked from the rudder when the wheels are up. So I'll show you. See how it goes and straightens back out? That is also, like, it's something I like to do whenever I can do it, because it gives me the ability to trim the nose wheel, having it unhooked from the rudder movement.
Steering -6.
So I can trim that with my right trimmer here, which is kind of excessive, but there we go, back to straightening it out.
Steering -8.
That looks about straight to me. Having it on this trimmer is so useful because it prevents you from having to pick the plane up, flop it over, and then use a screwdriver to clumsily adjust it and make it work so that it goes straight. It also helps you if you're going down the runway, you can make small course corrections without using the rudder if you need it to, or if you felt confident doing that. I'll use the rudder because I use such a high expo on it at 85%, that it's easy to make small course corrections or make big ones if I just want to push my hand all the way to the, or thumb to the outside of the stick. All right, so let's get the wheels up. Actually, before we do that, let's show you the mixing on that too. Again, this is going to be a weird channel for this. We're looking for rudder to auxiliary 5. It should be rudder to, well, actually, no, this one's correct. For some reason, it's actually working the way it's supposed to be. So it is auxiliary 5 that's plugged into with a 10-channel AR10360T, the latest one from Spektrum's offerings. That is just a simple 125% to 125%. 125% because I want the servo to move as far as it possibly can move. I may even add a second one because it's not moving 150%. Okay, that is pretty much all of the main mixing on this plane. If you want to know more about the flap system, I could talk to you about that. Currently I have my flaps dumping out to -50.
Flaps 50.
And then for -50 for landing flaps. Takeoff flaps are +47, and when they're fully retracted, they're at 135. It's all arbitrary. It depends on how you've set it up in the radio, if you'd like it to be inverted or not. Works well for me the way I've got it. She lands like a dream. If you watched the video of me doing nothing but takeoffs and touch and goes with it, and the unfortunate tip stall that I encountered, the plane's marvelous in the air. It flies really, really rock solid. It is one of the better flying foam models. It's just such a shame that it's so massive, but at the same time, it's amazing that it's so massive. It's just a shame that it's hard to take it with me. If I take it somewhere, I can only take 1 or 2 other models. I can't take 4 or 5 if I want to. All right, out of the mixing, we can actually also, while I'm here, let's show you flap mixing, because you can actually control the flaps as a to add with a roll authority, whatever you want to call it. Let's bring the gear back up so I don't waste the battery power just powering lights for no good reason. Okay, let's see here. Which one did I set this to? It may be AL to AX3. I think that's actually it. So let's turn the switch to on. It is. Okay, so let's actually make this a bit more powerful. So let's do -100 to -100. I don't want to spend all day tapping this, so if it doesn't get close enough, that's fine. There we go. My flap travel has been limited in the servo setup so that they cannot go any further than where they've already been set to, if I recall correctly. Yeah. Yeah, they're set to, instead of 4096, they're set to 3900, which translates to 135 up. They cannot go any further up than this in the radio setup. This prevents them from binding, which is why you don't hear the one here pulling up into it and buzzing and whirring and making angry sounds. This, I haven't tested yet, but I think I should. I may even tie it to the Taileron. Actually, let's do that real quick and just see what it looks like all together. So aileron to AX3, and we will enable D2.
Taileron, wing normal. Taileron.
And then disable it. There we go.
Taileron.
I shudder to think of how fast this thing is going to roll now. And it could go even further too. If I was to make it 125%. There we go. So let's look at it from the front, get an idea of what it looks like from all perspectives. Take a seat here underneath my little plane stand. It's only a shame that they can't go up too, but that wouldn't be very scale now, would it? So that's, again, a controlled aileron to AX3. It should be aileron to like right flap, but again, due to Spektrum mixing bugs and channel order assignments, it just don't work right. One of these days they'll fix it. I have hope. So let's pop her open, take a look on the inside. One of the things that I mentioned I did before was I changed the nose light out to the Freewing. Let's take a look at the other side so you can see it. The Freewing LED light controller version 3. and that has one thing plugged into it, and that's just the nose wheel. If I could get the landing lights into it as well, I totally would, but they are unfortunately connected to this little piece right here. The little ribbon cable. I would have to open this up even more and make it more of a rat's nest to make that function. And I'll show you what I'm talking about, because I haven't actually, because this hangs from my ceiling up here, I haven't bothered to screw any of this together, so I can always just pull it apart when I feel like it. The left wing is the most rat nesty of all of them. It has the craziest amount of wiring to get all of these to work independently, because you can't work on it that way with just the ribbon cable. It just will not work with the blue box. It does add a couple of extra minutes of setup time, unfortunately. Oh, right, I have to drop the gear to open this up. I forgot about that. Okay, hold that wing so we don't drop it. You'll see that I've made the adjustment of opening up the little circuit board here, unscrewing it, and then manually connecting wiring in here. To get those other lights in there would just be not worth the extra pain, I don't think. So there is a bit of extra work that you have to do to make this function. It is not a straight, simple shot of leave everything the way it is. You do have to unhook or unscrew the, what do you call it, the little circuit board, unplug the wires, and then run wires manually for servo leads through. It does not really add much weight at all. Servo leads are pretty lightweight, so it's not really a big deal to do that. And I do prefer, even if it takes me a couple more minutes to set the plane up, I prefer having the additional control over my servo mixing than not having it, just having it be a stock 6-channel setup mixed by the blue box. Also, for those of you guys who are adherents of hating the blue box, who have mentioned that the blue box has tons of failures and all that other fun stuff, doing it the way I'm doing it minimizes that chance. Most of my wiring here is just for the lights, and that's it. The ailerons are basically controlled independently. They have to be. So I think I only have one of them running into the blue box through this wire. The other one's not. And I've never seen the blue box fail anyway, so I don't think it's much of a problem. Going forward, again, it's all pretty simple setup in here. The only thing where it really diverges and becomes different is the fact that I'm running a remote receiver into the SRXL-B port. And that just kind of runs all the way to the back here. And I've got my extra antennas positioned for maximum reception. I get maybe 5 to 10 frame losses per flight with this thing. I flew 7 minutes with it one time, and I think I had like 15 total. It has amazing signal reception. Same thing up here. I run one across, and then I run one straight. For those of you guys who do set up these things, it's very important that you set them up correctly. Frame losses are only a problem of, or only a symptom of, improper antenna placement. Having them cross-polarized with as many options for the transmitter to see the antennas in the receiver is very important. It's going to be one of the best things you can do to properly set up a plane, is to get the antenna placement proper every single time. So what I recommend doing for that is one going across, one going horizontal, another one going across or up, and another one going horizontal. So you should always have the ability for it to have the radios talk to each other and never have to worry about them running into an issue where you'd have to go into failsafe. I use a little baggie with a Velcro attachment to hold my screws so I never lose them, and that just kind of hangs out in here. With the AR10-360T, I have the voltage wire literally spliced into the ESC leads, which might even be viewable here. Yep, you can see where I did it right here. I just hit it with electric. Well, that's the ESC. I'm sorry, but this is what it pretty much looks like. Is the voltage lead is just, I just hit it with an X-Acto blade, slice it in there, and then push them in, and then hold it in place with electrical tape. And I've done this for every model that I don't have an avian ESC in, and that gets me the voltage telemetry, so I know how long I can stay in the air and what my loads are and all that other fun stuff. This does come with altitude as well.
-8.4 feet.
Of course, it's not the most accurate of things if the receiver's been blown on. It's actually kind of interesting. Watch this. I will hold this up, watch the current altitude, and watch what happens when I blow on it. Now it's negative 12. And then as I stop blowing on it, it went back to negative 8.1. So if I reset altitude, it's now sitting at 0.1 to 0.0 feet. It's something nice to have. I like to know exactly where the plane's at, but your mileage may vary. Maybe you don't care. That's okay. It's just one of those setup things I like to talk about. Center of gravity, super important on this model. The default center of gravity is wrong, in my opinion. It is too nose heavy. Default CG, I believe, is right here. Yeah, right here. It is definitely too nose heavy. You want it closer to here. That's where mine's currently balancing, because I've added a little bit of tail weight to the rear end. Half ounce, and another half ounce back there. So 2 ounces total. Sorry for you metric fellows, I don't have the unit conversion on hand, but it's not maybe more than like 20 grams of weight, I think, if I had to convert in my head. Maybe 30. It's not a whole lot of weight, and it does help allow you to adjust your center of gravity. Before, you couldn't really adjust it, because if you moved it all you could do was adjust it nose heavy. You could adjust how nose heavy it was. That was it. You could never get it close to neutral. The way it's sitting right now is very neutral. So if I hold the plane up and get my hands in there, I'm currently balancing slightly nose heavy at, okay, so my finger is right here. The CG, well, let's move my hand over here so you can see it. I was balancing here. The center of gravity recommendation is here. This gets you a little bit more elevator authority. Actually, I'd say a lot more. And it also allows you to just fine tune your balance, because if I move this battery forward, watch what happens. Move that little baggie out the way. Say if I want to do some really crazy aerobatic flying with this, with an airliner, hilarious, right? And I want to make sure that that battery's strapped down nice and tight. What I can do now, because I have the weight in the tail, is I can get it centered on both of these straps. So I can make sure it's not going to go anywhere. As I'm, moving it around, it's not going anywhere. Pop this back on. I'm going to obviously get a more nose-heavy center of gravity, but it's still going to be more neutral than the default. So it actually has me balancing from here to about right here. It's still about 10 millimeters back from the recommended point on the wing. But I do find that this plane flares better like this. It flies better like this. And in general, it just feels better. My first maiden flight, I felt like I had almost no elevator. Even with 150% up, I was bottoming it out, trying to just had the full back, trying to get this thing to flare for a landing. Part of that was me coming in too fast. Part of it was just, it was nose heavy, very, very nose heavy. Okay, that covers pretty much all the setup. I did, I think I spliced a couple of wires together to get double blinking anti-collision beacons on the belly and the top of the plane, and to get single strobes on the tail and on the wings, pretty much how the real 737 is set up. All that's hiding underneath the battery tray. I can't really be arsed to go in there and get it out right now for this. It's very, very minor. But I do hope this helps you with your AL37. As always, I'm very open to questions and comments. And before I sign off, I want to show you something I've been working on that I'm going to play with a little bit more. I have the high alpha mix from my Viper 90mm in here. And I'm going to set this up with two different switches. I'm going to set it up with this one, where as my elevator is pulled back, the flaps in the crow come out. And I'm going to set it up with one where the crow comes, like the ailerons reflex all the way up as far as they can go, and then have no flaps move at all, to see if I can get it to high alpha. I did some testing with it. that I didn't actually upload. I'll splice it into this footage and you can see it while I'm talking. But I did get it to do some alpha attempts and I got close. I got close, believe it or not. It did stall earlier than I wanted it to, but I think with a lighter battery and a more rearward center of gravity, I can get this thing to fly on the twin 70s only. So we'll see, and I'll do it nice and high up because I love this model. This has been my favorite paint scheme ever since I was a kid, and I made it in Microsoft Flight Simulator 98 using Paint Shop Pro. If anybody remembers how old that is. So anyway, guys, this is John from SynRC signing out and wishing you a great day. Have a good one. See you guys next time.